He will be sued, and I say will be because nothing has been filed yet, by at least 120 people in the next 30 days.
Today, just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll stop.
The courtroom buzzed with tension as Shah Diddy CS made his latest appearance. His once commanding presence was now a shadow of its former self. The man who had built an empire off his larger-than-life persona looked starkly different from the mogul who once graced red carpets in tailored suits and diamonds. Gone was the confident swagger, replaced by a gaunt figure dressed in a khaki jumpsuit. His hair was noticeably grayer, and his frame visibly thinner. The transformation was impossible to ignore, even for those accustomed to the spectacle of celebrity trials.
And, it brings into context our whole system of innocent until proven guilty. Why is he not being given bond? And, we could debate that all day long. Of all people that's unlikely to flee or get away, well, he's got the resources to flee, but he's so recognizable. And isn't he innocent until proven guilty? Well, yeah, but, we have to recognize there are degrees of innocence.
Journalists, including Elizabeth Milner, couldn't help but remark on his astonishing appearance. He looked drastically thinner, Milner told reporters, her voice laced with a mix of surprise and pity. You see a man who's clearly been through it in the last few months. He's unrecognizable compared to his life of luxury before his arrest, she said. Everyone saw how deathly pale he was, and how inconsolable about completely falling apart it seemed that his destiny must be. A lavish lifestyle that had defined Diddy for decades, the yachts, the private jets, the extravagant parties, felt eons away from this subdued and weary figure now seated in a federal courtroom, staring down the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. It wasn't just Diddy's physical appearance that had changed. His demeanor in court hinted at a man grappling with the weight of his circumstances. Observers noted moments where he appeared defiant, turning to flash a smile at his children in the gallery. But even those brief attempts at positivity seemed forced, a thin veil over his mounting despair. His legal team, led by Mark Adna-Filo and Anthony Rue, sat beside him, furiously scribbling notes and whispering strategies. But the tension on their faces betrayed the uphill battle they faced in trying to secure his freedom.
Concern, no judge wants to wake up and read the headlines the next day. Oh, they treated this guy special and they gave him bond, and now he's gone and he fled from justice. So that's what's in the back of most judges' minds. On the other hand, we deal with cases where clients have significant funds sometimes, and sometimes where there's money, you can craft a unique solution. Years ago, it was the ankle bracelet and the ankle monitor.
This wasn't just any legal battle. It was a fight for survival. Diddy's legal troubles began to snowball after his September arrest, and the charges against him painted a damning picture. Accusations of coercion, misconduct, and orchestrated schemes placed him at the center of a scandal so sprawling it seemed to pull back the curtain on an entire underbelly of the entertainment industry. And yet, despite the mounting evidence and testimonies, Diddy pleaded not guilty to all charges, maintaining his innocence with a steadfastness that some called brave and others delusional. But if Diddy hoped for leniency, the courts weren't giving him any. His legal team's repeated attempts to secure bail had failed spectacularly, with Judge Arun Submanan denying every request. The reasoning? The risk of witness tampering. Prosecutors argued that Diddy's influence and resources made him a potential threat to the integrity of the trial. They cited past incidents, including allegations that he had tried to intimidate individuals involved in the case, as evidence that granting him bail could jeopardize the proceedings. The judge's decision was clear. Diddy would remain behind bars until his trial began in May.
Money he has and all the resources he has, they couldn't craft some solution that lets him be under some form of house arrest. And again, it sounds like special treatment, but the truth of the matter is, to incarcerate somebody like him is expensive to all of us. We're taxpayers, and he's got to have unique situations. You can't put him in general population where, everyone wants a piece of him and everyone wants to be his friend and everyone.
The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where Diddy has been held since his arrest, is a far cry from the opulence he once called home. Described by former inmates as hell on earth, the facility is notorious for its harsh conditions. Reports of violence, overcrowding, and substandard living conditions have plagued the detention center for years. For someone used to silk sheets and gourmet meals, adjusting to the stark reality of prison life was undoubtedly a shock. Michael Cohen, a former inmate at the same facility, described it bluntly. He's waking up on a steel bed with a 1.5-inch mattress, no pillow, in an 8-inch square-foot cell. Sources close to Diddy revealed that he initially struggled to adapt. The food, in particular, was reportedly a challenge. His attorney, ER, mentioned that Diddy had complained about the bland and unappetizing meals, which often consisted of cereal and fruit for breakfast, followed by unseasoned hamburgers or baked fish for lunch. Dinner options weren't much better, ranging from pasta to lentils, and the portions left much to be desired. With his once robust physique now visibly diminished, rumors circulated about just how much the stress and conditions were taking a toll on him.
Possible, right? But now this judge has an even harder time, I think, because the past judge locked him up, didn't let him out, and he's still there available for trial. If the new judge lets him out on bond and something goes wrong, and this isn't the analysis that I'm proud to make, right? We shouldn't be saying, well, judges are worried about their own skin and how they look if something bad happens.
And yet, inside those prison walls, Diddy was still trying to exert control. Whispers began to emerge about his attempts to reach out to individuals connected to the case. Prosecutors claimed he had tried, from behind bars, to contact witnesses and victims, a move that only strengthened the court's resolve to keep him in detention. Though Diddy's legal team vehemently denied these allegations, the rumors painted an unsettling picture of a man desperate to maintain his grip on a crumbling empire. His courtroom appearances became a theater of contrasts. On one hand, there was the public face of Diddy, composed, occasionally flashing smiles at his children and supporters, mouthing words of encouragement to his son during a hearing. On the other hand, there were the quiet moments when his exhaustion and anxiety seemed to seep through the cracks, his hands fidgeting as his attorneys argued on his behalf. These glimpses of vulnerability were a stark reminder that even the most powerful individuals are not immune to the weight of their circumstances. The Happiness Journal, Part 1.
They're going to try to transfer him. They're going to try to get him out. In a normal case where it's a high-profile person or a well-funded person, the prosecution and the judge is a little bit more concerned about wrongful prosecution because people that are mad that they're being arrested for a crime.
And yet, in some ways, Diddy's presence in court was as much about symbolism as it was about his defense. His legal team seemed acutely aware of the optics, fighting tooth and nail to allow him to appear in court without shackles. The argument? Shackles could create juror bias, potentially influencing how the public and eventually a jury might perceive him. The judge agreed, granting the request. But the larger battle was far from over. With each hearing, the stakes felt higher, and the tension in the room more palpable. Outside the courtroom, the spectacle continued. Media outlets dissected every detail of his case, from his legal team's strategies to his interactions with family members during hearings. The public, too, was divided. Some saw Diddy as a man wrongfully accused, a scapegoat in an industry rife with similar scandals. Others viewed him as the embodiment of everything wrong with the unchecked power of celebrity culture. Social media became a battleground of opinion, with hashtags and debates keeping his name trending for all the wrong reasons.
Can't move in the general population, and would he be at risk? Sure, he'd be at risk. There's so many people that have nothing to lose, right? They're going to be in jail the rest of their life. They've got nothing to. They want their 15 minutes of fame. They were friends with Diddy, or they hurt Diddy, or they Diddy, or they did. I mean, there's so many, people in jail that this would be their moment. You can't put them there. Plus,
but for all the headlines and courtroom drama, one thing was clear. Diddy's fall from grace was playing out in real time, and it was as gripping as it was tragic. The man who had once been celebrated as a pioneer in music and business, who had built an empire on the foundation of his charisma and ambition, was now fighting to salvage what remained of his reputation. As the allegations mounted and the evidence piled up, the question on everyone's mind was the same. How much longer could he hold on? As the courtroom session ended, and Diddy was escorted back to his cell, the whispers continued. There were rumors of new lawsuits on the horizon, of more individuals preparing to come forward with stories that could further dismantle his legacy. His legal team, visibly weary, huddled together, strategizing their next move. For Diddy, the battle was far from over, but the cracks in his armor were becoming impossible to ignore.
To the latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs, this one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment, as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators. But how exactly did we get here?
What made his situation even more precarious was the sheer scale of the allegations. This wasn't just one accusation or one lawsuit. This was an avalanche. Victims, witnesses, and insiders were coming forward with tales that painted a damning picture of a man who had allegedly operated with impunity for decades. And while his attorneys worked tirelessly to poke holes in the prosecution's case, the court of public opinion had already begun to render its verdict. It was in this context that Diddy's legal saga transitioned from a personal battle to a broader commentary on accountability and power. His story wasn't just about one man. It was about an industry, a culture, and a society grappling with the consequences of letting fame and wealth shield individuals from scrutiny for far too long. And as the courtroom drama unfolded, it became clear that Diddy's fight for his freedom was also a fight for something much larger, his legacy.
Is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in the jail cell right now, I think it really underscores the magnitude of what he's facing and the weight of the feds.
As the trial loomed, the world watched with bated breath, waiting to see what new revelations would emerge. The narrative was far from over, and the next chapter promised to be even more explosive. Would more victims come forward? Would his legal team manage to turn the tide in his favor? Or was this the beginning of the end for one of the most iconic figures in modern music history? The magnitude of the allegations against Sean Diddy Combs is something the entertainment world hasn't seen in decades. The sheer number of accusations, the variety of claims, and the high-profile nature of the case have created a whirlwind of scrutiny that has engulfed not just Diddy, but the entire music industry. With every passing week, more voices emerged, adding to the weight of the case against him. It's no longer just about whether Diddy is innocent or guilty. It's about the vast ripple effect this scandal is having across the industry and beyond.
To be expected, just the shock of this and the questions about what is ahead of us. How long is he going to be in custody? Is this an R. Kelly situation? Is he going to not get out for a number of years? Is he going to end up serving a long-term prison sentence from this? Or does he have a chance of beating these charges at a trial that could come, within
The allegations, which range from coercion to elaborate conspiracies, have painted a picture of a man who allegedly used his power, wealth, and influence to operate in a way that many are calling unimaginable. The most damaging aspect of this case isn't just the accusations themselves, but the sheer scale of it all. According to insiders, more than 100 individuals have come forward with stories, some dating back decades and others as recent as a few years ago. These accounts, while varied, all seem to point to a pattern of behavior that has left many wondering how such actions could have gone unchecked for so long. One of the most shocking elements of these allegations is the level of detail provided by those speaking out. Former associates, employees, and even individuals who claim to have been close to Diddy have stepped forward, sharing stories that range from troubling to downright terrifying. Inside the Wall Street Journal in 1999, for example, over 200 people were arrested and convicted despite being proven guilty. These aren't just anonymous faces. Many of these individuals have ties to Diddy's inner circle, making their claims even harder to dismiss. While Diddy's legal team has worked tirelessly to discredit these accounts, the sheer volume of allegations has made it difficult to ignore the mounting evidence. David Brennan says this tragic parable clearly shows us that we are not just witnessing a spectacular death.
Crazy, like I said before, they said that 2,300 people reached out to the law firm, and out of the 2,300 people, I guess they decided to go with just a little over 100, which seems like it's they just put out the number and everybody's calling to see if they can get a check.
It's insane. It's insane. Now, again, he did say that nothing has been filed yet because he says he wants to make sure that they do their due diligence and get this.
Adding fuel to the fire are the lawsuits that have been piling up since late last year. It all began with a bombshell lawsuit filed by Diddy's former partner, Cassie Ventura, in November 2023. Her claims, which were settled within 24 hours, opened the floodgates for others to come forward. While Diddy's team has maintained that settling the lawsuit was not an admission of guilt, critics argue that the rapid resolution only raises more questions. After all, why settle so quickly if there's nothing to hide? Cassie's case became the catalyst for a wave of legal action, with multiple individuals filing lawsuits in the weeks and months that followed. One of the most notable cases involves Joy Dickerson Neal, who accused Diddy of misconduct dating back to the early 1990s. Her story, which includes allegations of being taken advantage of and recorded without her knowledge, has drawn significant attention. Though Diddy's representatives have labeled her claims as fabricated and a blatant money grab, the case has nonetheless added to the growing list of allegations that paint a troubling picture of his past. And then there's the anonymous Jane Doe, whose lawsuit describes incidents allegedly involving Diddy and other high-profile individuals. Her claims, which involve orchestrated schemes and elaborate setups, have only deepened the public's interest in uncovering the truth.
Lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and at the hands.
What's even more shocking is the role of Diddy's associates in these allegations. According to court documents and insider accounts, several of Diddy's closest confidants are accused of enabling or even participating in some of these troubling incidents. Harf Pierre, the former president of Bad Boy Entertainment, has been named in at least one lawsuit, with claims that he played a direct role in facilitating some of the alleged actions. While Pierre has remained tight-lipped about the accusations, his inclusion in the lawsuits has raised questions about how deep this scandal truly goes. Was this a case of one man acting alone, or was there a network of individuals complicit in covering up these alleged activities? The accusations don't just stop at Diddy's associates. Even his business operations have come under scrutiny. Former employees of Bad Boy Entertainment have come forward, describing a toxic work environment where inappropriate behavior was not only tolerated but allegedly encouraged. These accounts have sparked a broader conversation about accountability in the music industry, with many questioning how such behavior could go unchecked for so long. Critics argue that the entertainment world has long operated under a culture of silence, where powerful individuals are rarely held accountable for their actions. Diddy's case, they argue, is a prime example of what happens when that culture is allowed to fester unchecked.
Investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case.
But perhaps the most troubling aspect of this entire saga is the alleged involvement of individuals who claim they were targeted or exploited. Many of these individuals, some of whom were aspiring musicians or models, have described feeling powerless against the weight of Diddy's influence. According to their accounts, they were often lured in with promises of career opportunities, only to find themselves caught in situations they couldn't escape. These stories have struck a chord with the public, sparking outrage and calls for greater protections for vulnerable individuals in the industry. The media has played a significant role in amplifying these voices, with outlets like CNN, Reuters, and the New York Times dedicating extensive coverage to the case. Courtroom sketches of Diddy sitting beside his legal team have become a symbol of his fall from grace, while interviews with alleged victims have added a human element to their story. Journalists like Elizabeth Milner have been at the forefront of covering the case, providing detailed accounts of courtroom proceedings and insider scoops that have kept the public hooked. Milner, who attended several pretrial hearings, described the atmosphere as tense and heavy, with every word spoken in court carrying the weight of what's at stake. Other ventures, including his partnerships in fashion and liquor, have also suffered, with some companies reportedly cutting ties altogether. Even Diddy's own family hasn't been spared from the spotlight. His children, who have remained supportive of their father throughout the ordeal, have attended several court hearings, offering silent encouragement from the gallery. The author John Wentworth says in an interview with Capable Criticism, but their presence has also raised questions about how the scandal is impacting them personally. OK Converser noted how Diddy mouthed the words, "You okay?" to one of his sons during a recent hearing, a moment that underscored the toll this case is taking on his family. Critics argue that while Diddy's actions are at the center of this scandal, the ripple effects are being felt by everyone close to him. Meanwhile, the entertainment industry has been forced to grapple with the fallout. Diddy's once sterling reputation as a music mogul and entrepreneur has been shattered, with brands and business partners distancing themselves from him in droves. Revolt, the television network he co-founded, announced in November 2023 that Diddy had stepped down as chairman. While his representatives described the move as temporary, insiders suggest it was a strategic decision to minimize the damage to the brand.
Today, on Monday, Diddy celebrated his 55th birthday, but this year was a lot different. It was no Diddy parties. It was none of that. None of that stuff. Well, happily, so I guess right now. But anyway, so this is his first birthday behind.
As the lawsuits continue to pile up and the trial date inches closer, the question on everyone's mind is simple. How will this all end? Diddy's legal team has vowed to fight the accusations with everything they've got, insisting that the truth will eventually come to light. But with each new allegation, the odds seem to stack higher against him. The court of public opinion, meanwhile, has already begun to render its verdict, with many believing that Diddy's downfall is inevitable. Social media is flooded with commentary, hashtags, and debates as people from all walks of life weigh in on the case. For some, it's a moment of reckoning for a man who once seemed untouchable. For others, it's a sobering reminder of the darker side of fame and power. But for all the outrage, there's also a sense of curiosity about what else might come to light. Insiders suggest that the lawsuits filed so far are just the tip of the iceberg, with more individuals reportedly preparing to come forward. If true, this could mark one of the largest scandals in music history, with far-reaching implications for the industry as a whole. On the virtual platform, Keith Amos said, suggestible of her patronage of Idlehand, "It's been 2 years. The question isn't just whether Diddy will be held accountable, it's whether the industry will finally confront the systemic issues that allowed this alleged behavior to go unchecked."
It's a question of that, but when you read through the indictment, it's pretty clear who could be indicted as a co-conspirator. Right now, there are people in the indictment who would be considered unnamed co-conspirators, but clearly have played a role in this conspiracy. And I think prosecutors have some big leverage on them because they're hoping that they testify against Diddy as prosecution.
And then there's the matter of Diddy's legacy. For decades, he was celebrated as a pioneer, a trailblazer who redefined what it meant to be a music mogul. His influence extended far beyond the charts, shaping fashion, culture, and even politics. But now, that legacy is on the verge of being overshadowed by scandal. Whether he's ultimately found guilty or not, the damage to his reputation may be irreversible. For someone who built an empire on his name, the loss of that name's value is perhaps the greatest punishment of all. As the world watches this saga unfold, one thing is clear: this story is far from over. With the trial set to begin in May 2025, the months ahead promise even more revelations, more drama, and more questions about the man who once seemed unstoppable. Will Diddy's legal team manage to turn the tide, or will the weight of the allegations finally bring him down? And what will this case mean for the future of accountability in the entertainment industry? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing celebrity stories. Until next time.